This is Liberty Mountain Radio, the voice of the coming apocalypse, broadcasting to you today from an undisclosed location in the not-too-distant future. The staff and management of this station is pleased to present for the first time ever the audiobook No Man's Land, written by Nathan Wolfe, copyright 2021, all rights reserved. Narrated by Randall. It was twilight by the time we rolled to a stop in front of the lodge. The setting sun had disappeared behind the snow-capped peaks. Night and the thermometer were both falling fast. The welcoming committee of at least 24 women gathered on the balcony. They erupted into joyous shouts of celebration and hand-waves when Darlene emerged from the vehicle. The boisterous welcome turned to a frosty silence when I stepped out of the car. It was as if somebody had pulled the plug on the PA system. Darlene moved around the front bumper and gave me a hug as she whispered in my ear. "Did I mention this is an all-woman prepper community?" You forgot to share that little bit of news with me." "What the hell are we going to do now?" I whispered back. Darlene was like that. She tended to skimp on the details and fill in the void with trivia or useless facts. She held my hand as we broke from our embrace, and then spoke to the assembled multitude of women on the porch. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my partner, Dennis Richards. He's old, but he's kind of cool once you have a chance to know him." An older woman, who turned out to be the group's leader, stepped forward. "I'm Sheila Carson, Mr. Richards. Please come inside. I think we need to have a talk." I had the same uneasy, oh crap, now what feeling I used to get when summoned to the principal's office as a kid. Sheila turned on her heels, walked inside. The rest of us followed her into the cabin's great room. If the building appeared big from the outside, standing in the middle of the cathedral hall, the misty room seemed to go on forever. A massive freestanding stone fireplace dominated the central space with a blazing fire, radiating heat and light in all directions. The distant ceiling towering over the open space was almost lost in the smoky haze and shadows of the great room. Rustic, rough wooden balconies ringed the walls on all three sides at the second-story level. Thousands of LED icicle lights hung from the unpainted railings and stairways. A soft, comforting glow bathed the room in the soothing and pleasant colors of an autumn sunset. Sheila directed us to go with her to her upstairs office. She stood about 5 feet 6 inches tall and was a good-looking professional woman, about my age. She wore no makeup. She needed none. Streaks of red highlighted her bangs and her short-cropped brunette hair. She appeared to be in magnificent physical condition. Her skin had the bronze tan of somebody who was no newcomer to hard outdoor labor. Her face was more handsome than beautiful. She dressed in faded work jeans and a low-cut wool sweater. It allowed an excellent view of well-tanned, medium-sized breasts and the valley between. Sheila's office featured a giant oak desk and a stone hearth. A picture window filled one wall, with a breathtaking panorama of the frosted mountains painted silver in the light of an almost full moon. A floor-to-ceiling bookcase crammed with books covered the opposite wall. There were several oriental rugs scattered about on the wood floor. "Make yourselves comfortable. I'll be right back." Sheila made a quick exit through a side door. Her abrupt departure startled me. Something was brewing. Darlene and I took a seat on the sofa in front of the coffee table and exchanged worried glances while we waited. I bent close and whispered, "What the hell are we going to do now? This isn't the warm and fuzzy feeling you were expecting." Darlene half smiled. "No kidding, I don't understand it. I told Sheila's assistant that you were coming with me, and she said, 'Great, more the merrier.'" We could hear the muffled voices, but not the words of two women engaged in a heated exchange in the next room. The argument stopped abruptly, and a moment later Sheila entered the office with another woman in tow. "Your presence here represents something of a problem, Mr. Richards. Darlene sent us a text message to our satellite phone. She told us she would be arriving with her lover, Denise. It was on that basis we gave permission for you to stay with our family of sisters." Sheila crossed her arms and studied me closely. Darlene let out a little gasp and burst out laughing. "It's shit for brains autocorrect. It'll get you every time. I dictated that message on my iPhone. I never noticed it changed Dennis to Denise, Darlene said and chuckled. Oh, damn. Talk about getting off to a lousy start. We were at the intersection of colossal and fuck-up. It took Sheila only a moment to absorb the implications of Darlene's unintended error. There was no conspiracy at work here, only faulty technology. Well, mistakes or not, Mr. Rigid's presence within our family might produce unnecessary sexual tension. That kind of stress can be bad for families, Sheila explained as she took a seat across from us. Seriously, I said. If you're all lesbians, how can an old fart like me create any kind of stress? I protested. Well, Mr. Richards, there are capital L lesbians, and then there are lowercase l lesbians. And then there are those who just might wish to find pleasure from a man out of mischief or mere curiosity. The fact that you're old makes you seem harmless. He leaned forward and studied me closely. But I know better. You're not as safe as you appear. You've already seduced one of my sisters and convinced her to take you on as a lover. Sheila glanced over at my companion. I also gave Darlene a curious look of my own. I had long suspected, but never knew for sure that my lady love walked both sides of the street. Sheila leaned forward and looked directly into Darlene's eyes. Darlene, since we're already on the subject, why on earth did you pick such an old guy for a lover in the first place? Good Lord, girl, he's old enough to be your father, or even your grandfather. Darlene laughed. Everyone wants to know about our May-December relationship. I picked Dennis because he's low maintenance, easy to be with, and he treats me with respect. He's a fantastic lover and knows how to make a girl happy. He has an extremely talented tongue. Sheila looked at me and raised a questioning eyebrow. I smiled back and reddened as the talented tongue comment floated in the air like a lost balloon. She let the silence stretch out a bit, and then reached across the coffee table and took my girlfriend's right hand in her own and licked her lips. Tell me, dear sister, is his penis as talented? I shifted in my seat and struggled to keep a neutral expression as the two women discussed my junk and my sexual performance. I could not imagine a more awkward conversation. Darlene's eyes widened in surprise at Sheila's intimate question, then narrowed in thoughtful reflection for several moments. Well, his thing is untrained, and it doesn't work as well as his mouth. Sometimes my lover can't get it up, and he can't keep it up when he does. Other times his pecker has a mind of its own. He often suffers from premature ejaculation when he eventually does generate an erection. Sheila glanced over at me and raised an inquiring eyebrow. I just blushed and did my best to sink out of sight. I tried to avoid any response that might further extend the discussion. Darlene tended to overshare information. Turning toward her assistant, Sheila asked, Will you please show Darlene to her room and round up a few of the women to help unpack their vehicle, Lucia? I need to spend a few minutes on bringing Mr. Richards up to speed on the ground rules for our colony. Please let the kitchen crew and the others know that we might be just a little bit late for dinner. With a fleeting kiss on my lips, Darlene rose and gave Sheila a noticeably longer smooch as she followed Lucia out of the room. The door closed. Sheila stood and beckoned me to follow her. Let's adjourn to the next room where we can relax. We've got a lot to talk about. There's no doubt about it. I was a stranger in a very strange land. Chapter 3. The next room turned out to be the bedroom Sheila shared with Lucia, her partner. The bookcase and several artfully done watercolor portraits of lightly clad women adorned the golden yellow walls of hand-hewn pine planks. A queen-size four-poster bed overlaid with beautiful handmade quilt took up one wall. An antique handcrafted wrought iron table lamp with stained glass shades provided most of the light for the room. The remainder came in the form of the hazy glimmer of smoldering embers within the stone hearth. An impressive woody brown bearskin carpeted the floor at the fireside, and several hefty throw pillows offered comfy seating. Overall, the pleasantly warm and dimly lit room had an elegant and cozy aura about it. The colony's mistress retrieved an amber-colored bottle and 2 glasses from the bookshelf and sat down on the furry floor. "Would you care to join me for a glass of home-brewed brandy?" Sheila asked. Her hand patted a spot next to her side, and she beckoned me to sit. "Sure, but only if you make mine a double," I answered and lowered my body to the rug. Tempting as it was, I decided not to ask for a triple. Perhaps later. This will have to do for now. I took a sip of the offered spirits. The silky, warm glow of liquid heaven slipped down my throat as smooth as glass. "Tell me, Dennis, how at ease are you with public displays of nudity?" Sheila invited before taking a swallow. The drink in my mouth nearly snorted out of my nose as I coughed and choked in shock at a weird question. "I don't got a problem with casual nudity," I said as I fought to regain my composure. "Back in the day, I visited lots of unclothed beaches in my lifetime." "Well, did you undress or only visit as a voyeur?" "Yes, I got a sunburn as everyone else. Why do you ask?" "For your information, our dress code is clothing optional when we're here at home. Most of us go sky-clad when we aren't working or cooking or if safety requires we stay covered up." "I'm glad you're comfortable with this," Sheila said as she pulled a sweater over her head and revealed her braless chest. "I used to think I was as jaded as jewelry, and nothing would surprise me. Wrong." She folded her garment neatly, rose to her knees, unbuckled her blue denims, and slid them down to her ankles. My eyes widened in wonder. Sheila wore no underwear, and her unclothed body exhibited no trace of tan bands. My head was spinning. The same dizzy sensation I had when standing at the edge of a cliff swept over me in a wave of cultural vertigo. I struggled to keep my mental balance. The standard familiar landmarks outlining the boundaries of acceptable behavior were either missing or obscured in this strange new world. After placing her jeans atop of her pullover, she leaned back on her pillow and closed her eyes. "Ah, much better," she said. "I'm getting to the point where I almost despise attire." I took a second to examine Sheila's exposed body and paused to engrave the image in my memory for a later replay. The moment might make more sense the second time around. Her tan breasts had thus far won the war with gravity. Apart from a few stretch marks, they were teenage firm. Nice. Except for a few creases above a thin patch of reddish-brown hair, Sheila's toned and brown body was almost wrinkle-free. She was in better physical shape than most women half her age, certainly in better shape than me. She could have been a high-mileage 30-year-old, but whatever the odometer reading, the view was soft on the eyes. Her face had the typical lines and weather-worn features of someone who spent most of their life outdoors. She opened her eyes and caught me studying her body. "Do I meet with your approval?" Damn, I was stone-cold busted. Sorry, I blushed and half-smiled. I don't mean to stare. It's just not often I find myself alone with a naked lady, and I've only just now met you," I stammered. "This whole thing is way too weird. It's way too wild. Talk about being on the wrong side of easy. You're naked, now you tell me there's an entire flock of natural jaybirds roosting just beyond this door?" My eyes darted about the room. "And all this place halfway to nowhere. It's just a few dozen zip codes away from my comfort zone. I need time to process." Taking a deep breath, I hesitated for a moment and glanced about. "Take this cabin, for example. It's almost new. 10, 15 years old at the most? It must have cost a fortune. What'd you guys do, win the lottery or something?" I waved my arms about the room like an old windmill. "Oh, you're either a wonderfully good guesser or a rather lucky boy." Sheila smiled. "Luck is how this place came to be. Remember 20 years ago when everyone freaked out over an unclaimed $75 million jackpot in the Colorado lottery? It was the sisters and me." Sheila tapped her chest with her thumb and winked. "We cashed in the ticket the last day after taking a year to plan and set up a corporation to hold and claim the prize." She smiled. Proud of herself, I could tell. We elected to fly under the radar. We didn't want media attention. I'm sure you can understand. Sheila caressed my thigh with her hand. You needed tons of supplies to build this place, and there ain't no roads in or out of the glen. How the hell did you construct this mansion? Well, we cut and milled the wood we required on site. Sheila looked out the window and looked back in my eyes. It was a French-Canadian heavy-lift helicopter service. They hauled in everything necessary to complete this building and several utility structures. I'll give you and Darlene a tour tomorrow, Sheila offered. I nodded and reached into my shirt pocket. A smoke would calm my nerves. With cigarettes in hand, I asked, "Okay if I light up?" "What? You got cigarettes? Oh, it's been years." She reached over and took the pack from my hand and emptied 2 cigarettes out before setting the pack next to her leg. Sheila gave me one before rolling onto her stomach. Her legs spread a little wider for increased stability as she inched forward and reached into the fireplace and searched for an unburned sprig to use as a match. Each rounded cheek in our firm, compact, well-tanned Fanny was on vivid display, as was the scenery in the valley between. The little guy in my shorts stiffened in response to the vision before me. Damn, I'm going to have to get that guy under control. My aging and raging hormones need to be in check if nudity's going to be the new normal around here. I had a hunch getting aroused every time one of the women in the colony bent over wasn't going to pass muster. Reaching into my pants pocket, I pulled out my Bic and lit my cigarette. I took a thankful puff and studied Sheila while she worked to ignite her twig. I tapped her leg and offered my torch. Sheila relaxed against her cushion for the first few minutes and puffed away at what I'm sure was the first cigarette in many years. Gosh, I'd almost forgotten how much I enjoyed nicotine. Sheila coughed, laughed, and blew a perfect smoke ring, paused, and exhaled another. "Keep the pack, my treat," I said. "Plenty more in the car." My eyes followed the misty circles until they dissolved in the air. I was impressed. Not many smokers can blow quality cloud circles. "How much is plenty more?" Sheila asked. "Oh, I bought enough to roll at least 24,000 cigarettes. That should last a few years," I told Sheila about my bulk purchase in Rifle, Colorado. My eyes kept drifting back to Sheila's chest and down to her thighs as we talked. I know staring is rude, but you're an attractive woman, and it's difficult to keep my eyes from wandering," I twitched. "So I see. Don't worry about it. I didn't give you much warning. This was a test, and I wanted to see how you'd handle female nudity." "You did fine," Sheila replied with a grin. "Anyways, honestly, I'm flattered when somebody, even if it's a man, admires my body," she stated and smiled at my crotch. "I understand the usual norms around social nudity," I said. "Unwanted sexual aggression isn't included. Nudity doesn't give a man permission to grope or gawk. I get it." I averted my eyes and rested my hand in my lap, for safety's sake. Well, that's an almost feminist viewpoint. Not too bad for a man. Perhaps you will fit in here after all. Sheila stretched and stood on her tiptoes as circulation returned to her legs. "Dinner time is almost over. We need to get to the dining room before there's nothing left to eat," she said and extended her hand. I thankfully accepted her invitation to rise. I had the creaky joints of a man twice my years.